all of you, and I'm Mauricio. I was born in Uruguay, in an urban area, and my family and friends had close links to the countryside, to the rural environment. I always loved agricultural production ever since I was a child. As I used to travel around the rural areas with my parents as a child, really started falling in love with the countryside and agricultural and rural production. When I was 15, I went to an agricultural school in the interior of Uruguay. I graduated at university, worked for over 10 years in agricultural dairy companies, and I was a rural employee in those days. And around those days, I also learned that not just did I love the countryside, but also human resources and labor. So I became an entrepreneur. I founded a human resources scouting company, and I selected all sorts of workers for different businesses, including farm workers, tractor drivers, you name it. But in 2015, things changed. The price of grains and milk came tumbling down. Now, the crisis was of such a magnitude that my business almost disappeared. I had to sell my car to pay for dismissed employees and other debts that were piling up. So I was left with nothing. But businesses then started to have different needs. Businesses that used to have permanently employed staff started to go for temporary hires, and that was something that I couldn't offer at the time. My services were slow and costly, so we decided to look into the problem and see how big it was. And over 60% of the companies were unable to hire the workers they needed. But what struck me most was that many people, though available and knowledgeable, didn't link up to these job offerings. So we decided to create a platform to link companies needing seasonal and temporary workers to people who were skilled, who knew how to do the jobs, and who were willing to do them. So this was a platform that would prioritize the quality of people as workers, leaving aside the bias, and we'll see why I talk about bias. I remember when we started to get to know these workers, I encountered a very different reality. We had to invest a lot of time and creativity to ensure that these people could actually register on a platform. But we finally succeeded, and today there are over 80,000. And these people, unlike the workers I had previously known from rural areas, live in urban areas, the periphery of cities, and every day they commute from the city to the countryside to work on pruning, on harvesting, on all sorts of agricultural tasks. They are people with very low income. They come from very humble surroundings. They live in irregular settlements with no sanitation, in flood-prone areas very often. The fact is that these people include 10% LGBT and former prison inmates. While still fresh into this, I found that many people left their formal jobs for informal ones, where they got paid less, but they were paid within the day, which I found remarkable. So we started doing some research and ran a survey, and we asked people what they would do with the money if they could collect that on the same day. And the answers I found surprising, because 70% of the people answered they would buy food. 15% of them would use the money to pay off debt, and the rest would use the money to pay rent or essential services. And some responses were about buying clothes or buying a new cell phone or traveling, but those answers didn't even account to 1%. So these people were really living from hand to mouth. So then I wondered if someone who earns $15 or $20 a day, and I'm speaking for Uruguay because in the region the average value is a lot lower, how do those people manage to ensure that their families get enough food, and how can they support their families when opportunities seem to be so elusive? And, we had the grape picking season, and of course, if you do this manually, the wines are much higher quality than if you do this through automated means. And one vineyard in the south of Canelones in Uruguay requested 40 workers for the grape picking, which was quite a milestone for us. And on the first day this took place, we went along with Rodrigo, the co-founder and my partner at the time, to see how this happened. But things took a different turn. The vineyard wasn't prepared for the grape picking, which made it very hard to do the job. At noon, the temperature was over 40 degrees Celsius. There was no shade, no breeze, and the drinking water was dark, hot. Many workers started getting annoyed and wanted to leave, and rightly so. So, faced with that situation, we said, no, we need to make this succeed. We need to help the people, motivate them. So we started to pick grapes ourselves, to load the boxes. We started helping people in whatever way we could. And at one point, I was literally roasting in the heat. I was all red, full of dirt, stained with grape juice all over, blisters on my hands, after carrying boxes and dying of thirst. The work these people do is truly tough. It's not the sort of work for anyone. Sometimes you think about the grape picking as something colorful, but it's very tough work, and often with very hostile weather situations or conditions. And I got to meet Adrian, a man just like me. He's a family father. The difference is that he has a very severe disability and he uses crutches to walk. But on that day, I met him during the grape picking grapes, filling boxes, and taking the boxes to the other end of the row for the tractor to carry that away. All of that to support his family for this very low wage we were talking about. And I also met a lot of other people. I met a young man who was 26. He was in prison and he had 2 days a week on which he was allowed to work. On one of those days, he went to the grape picking and I talked to him. The problem this young man had was that he was addicted to drugs, just like his father and 4 of his 6 siblings. The truth is, in that group, there was a high level of diversity. Very young mothers, grandmothers, young guys who were doing their first work experience, many men who were over 30, lots of stories of hard work and sacrifice to get by. And you know what? In Latin America, there are 35 million people like them. And this is a figure that has continued to rise in the past decade. And we were really pleased to be an inclusive platform that offered opportunities. But the fact is, we realized that we had to go the extra mile. We had to do a little more, because with just a little more, we could be changing these people's lives. So through a number of studies, we found that there were 4 areas in which these people had serious difficulties. The first one being nutrition, getting food. So they really have to go out of the way to take food back home. And they eat the fruit they pick to have the belly full. And then, of course, there's mouth health. And this is not just about beauty. You know, you think about a beautiful smile when you go to the dentist, but these people have mouth health issues that, if not treated in time, lead to other chronic diseases elsewhere in the bodies. And the other point was about recreation. These families really have no leisure activities for their context or circumstances. And we had a lot of failed initiatives precisely because we failed to take this into account. And the opportunities were not taken advantage of. So it's about the health and welfare of people. And last but not least, financing. I don't know if this is... These people need money to go to work, to pay the fare, $50 to get to work. And that's what the finance boils down to, that single dollar. If that person doesn't have that dollar, they lose the job. We have also signed agreements with the Ministry of Social Development in Uruguay, and 10% of the work quota goes into people who have difficulty joining the job market, former prison inmates, among others. And every single day we get to see very tough stories. We have some audio issues. We are helping these people every day. The interpretation will momentarily stop until the audio goes back to normal.
Una persona de estas, con ese dólar para poder ir a trabajar, le estamos cambiando la vida.
So, by ensuring that those people have that dollar they need, we are truly changing their lives. And I would like to invite us to join our experiences, to work together, so we want to achieve positive, sustainable impact for the benefit of these people.